The Rutherford Board of Education on October 17, 2022. We're going to ask everyone who can to please stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Thank you. Mrs. Ahmed. Mr. Bogosian. Mr. Conti. Mr. Healy. Mrs. Jones. Mr. Mazzone. Dr. Racine. Mr. Sprayberry. And Dr. Alati.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. Board members, in your packets this evening, there were minutes to approve from the regular meeting of October 3rd, 2022. Do you have any comments or questions about those? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. So this evening, for our Board of Education regular meeting, we're going to begin with a very special presentation. The reason that you're all here this evening, which are our Scholastic Awards and this ceremony. We have a record number of students who are receiving awards, I think over 270. So I'll keep my comments brief to say congratulations and kudos to all of you, to your children, for all of their accomplishments. And on behalf of the board, we celebrate with you and look forward to acknowledging them this evening. And with that, I will turn it over to the principal of Rutherford High School, Mr. Morano.
Thank you. I never get an applause during the school day when the kids are in front of me. As Mr. Alati alluded to, that we have the largest amount of students we ever have, which is amazing, but it's a little different setup here this evening. If we tried to add 270 students in the auditorium, as we normally do, we wouldn't all be fitting in it. So we have students staged in different areas of the building, and they're going to come up, their name will be called, they'll walk across the stage, and then exit the auditorium. And then at the end, if you'd like to take some pictures, we'll invite everybody back in. But with that said, I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2022 Board of Education Award Ceremony. As the principal, it's with great pride that we recognize these wonderful individuals this evening. The students being honored tonight have shown extraordinary work ethic and commitment to academics by receiving a GPA of at least 3.7 and no grade lower than a B- during the 21-22 school year. Our students have shown the discipline it takes to be successful in future endeavors. If you come on Thursday night, if you have any 7th and 8th graders to our open house, you will hear me talk about the wonderful sports teams we have, the amazing theater program, our musical program, our extensive extracurricular activities. But we have to remember one thing, we're an academic institution first. And tonight, our students are receiving awards for their academic achievements, and that's amazing. I'd like to recognize and thank a few people in our school community, Mr. Hurley, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. DeBarry, the Assistant Principal, Dr. Hopkins, Director of Guidance, Mr. Kelly, our Business Administrator, and of course, our always supportive Board of Education. Finally, and most importantly, I'd like to thank and congratulate all of the parents here this evening. Your support and involvement in our school system is greatly appreciated. I'd now like to introduce the Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Jack Hurley.
Thank you, Mr. Morano. Just a few words. As we heard, there's lots and lots of students to be honored tonight, and this is their night. But I do want to say, to echo what Dr. Alati said and what Mr. Morano said, this is a very special evening. As the high school principal, when I served in that role, I always felt the same way Mr. Morano does. This is a night to really recognize what we do and what we try to do throughout the high school years, academic achievement. As superintendent, I see this now as even something bigger. It's a K-12 achievement in many cases, as the district works to get students to this moment. And I know Mr. Morano said, and rightly so, that tonight's about academics, but as you begin to see the students and you hear the names, you'll recognize the actors and the musicians and the athletes and the community leaders and the students in so many different activities who manage to do all of those co-curricular activities and still manage to get to this level of excellence academically. So congratulations to all of them, and congratulations to all of you, because this is a community effort, and our involvement with the students, the parents, the community, the board, and the faculty and staff is what makes this happen. So congratulations to all, and enjoy the evening. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hopkins, Dr. Shannon Hopkins, the Director of Guidance, to honor the students. Thank you.
Good evening. The Board of Education Scholastic Award is presented to those students who meet the criteria of a 3.7 or higher weighted grade point average for an academic year, while also not receiving a final grade of less than a B- while attending Rutherford High School. The Bronze Award is presented to students who earn this distinction for one academic year. We would ask that you hold your applause until all names have been read so that each name can be heard. Mr. Frank Morano will present the Bronze Awards. Our 12th graders: Augustin Berrettini, Anthony Bonagora, Gina Del Angel, Chloe King, Valentina Lorza, Roland Miranda, Simon Raymond, Benito Zarzuela Olivo. Our 11th graders: Alina Amaro, Liam Cahill, Sean Dugan, Kaylee Griffith, Ansh Jodani, Samuel Larenk, Joy Shom, Onar Ulalar, Ryan Ward. Our 10th graders: Joanna Abraham, Aiden Barone, Krista Bellinger, Ava Bergman, Tida Bissick, Poppy Bimsum, Morgan Ballinger, Spencer Budnich, Alexis Capello, Zadie Castellanos, Nathaniel Chi, Mateo Chauvin Dalton, Rithika Chalani, Thomas Sinkyu, Caden Cole, Andy Concepcion, Kate Dillon, John Eustace, Jay Galiotto, Mia Garcia, Maya Gosayak, Tristan Greeley, Felice Hannett. Gia Hernenko. Sahana Jackacanthian. Alex Jimenez. Calvin Jordan. Molly Carroll. Richa Kothia. Grayson Crocus. Sophia Lanchipa. Madison Lewis. Jaden Lopez. Allery McGregor. Sophia Mendez. Carolus Masiha. Victoria Misek. Catherine Miguel Rasterio. Isabella Montana. Haley Moran. Sophia Moran. Brian Mulligan. Amira Najjar. Andres Newman. Angelina Neira. Kaya Noguchi. Ian Oliveira. Lucy Olivo. Cassidy Ovarsi. Man Pandya. Noah Pazantes. Palak Purowit. Brandon Ramick. Michaela Rossi. Marley Santana. Nicholas Scaglione. Wesley Schlemmer. Andrew Silva. Blake Smith. Pranav Sridhar. Ava Stadler. Oliver Tapia. Margaret Turso. Rachel Vidal. Nasa Vinit. Paula Walczyk. Fiona Waller. Rafal Wallows. Gianna Yanario. Barat Yijit. Beryl Yijit. Jaden Yu. And Mia Ziccanella. Now we can applaud. Okay, the Silver Award is presented to students who achieve a 3.7 or higher grade point average and no final grade less than a B- for 2 academic years. I would again ask that all applause is held until the names have been read. This is a shorter list. Dr. Sergio Alati, President of the Board of Education, will present the Silver Awards. We will start with our seniors. Lucia Andler. Marcus Aslani. Gabriel Castillo. Christina Frank. Francesca Fraschilla. Kayla Garofalo. Jake Kazmarek. Dylan Kelly. Max Mazzone. Michelle Mendonca. Michael Mikhail. Liam Murphy. Faith Santana. Nico Schumacher. Thomas Singh. Hannah Tobin. Van Weber. Our 11th graders, Stella Abouad, Erin Ahern, James Alati, Carrie Augustifer, Michaela Brennan, Bella Cardinali, Isabella Claveria, Cecilia Davidson, Jody DeSalvo, Sean Doyle, Ian Ansuncho, Mia Eubanks, Daniel Fensick, Maya Forte, Hanil Gandhi, Jamie Garita, Sophia Geltrude, Ayush Gohil, John Gossard, Ava Greiner, Timothy Hunt, Carlito Inductivo, Hannah Kane, Lika Kakastrian, Sabrina Krasnicki, Megan Legacy, Ian Lenigan, Yan Yu Liu, Rebecca Matthews, Maya McCosker, Coda Mirizo, Adriana Medina, Ariana Menjivar, Abigail Moeller, Horatio Nelson, Chinzia Nicodemo, Mia Olivo, Arav Parikh, Kia Parikh, Aryan Patel, Lauren Flieger, Neil Rana, Jade Racio, Lauren Ramsey, Sarah Savia, Madeline Savage, Alyssa Schaefer, Ellie Schmidt, Madison Silverstein Cuoto, Tyler Smith, Dylan Ten, Natalia Tomzak, Dylan Torres, Evan Tortora, Catherine Weigel. And Emma Weisard. The Gold Award is presented to students who achieve a 3.7 grade point average or higher for 3 academic years, as well as no final grade below a B-. The seniors who earn a Gold Award will also have the opportunity to earn a plaque at graduation to honor 4 academic years earning a Board of Education award. Mr. Jack Hurley, Superintendent of Schools, will present the Gold Awards. Ryan Atia. Catherine Bardzell. Leah Barna. Raghav Srinivas Barathan. Catherine Bonanno. Chase Budnich. Matthew Chin. Hai-Jun Cho. Andrew Chu. Paul Classy. Samuel Correa. Rahul Dave. Amit Jerkovic. Rachel Dre. Natalia Engler. Natalia will also receive the George Eastman Young Leaders Award, which is given to a student who shows strong leadership in school and community while maintaining strong grades and extensive involvement in extracurricular activities. I'll grab that, give that to her because she ran past. Thomas Federic. Daniel Geltrude. Christopher George. Jack Gregory. Jack will also receive the Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony Award in the Humanities, which is given to a student who has shown leadership and dedication to community action and an understanding of social issues. Mario Idaluca. Samuel Kelly. Anshul Khan. Emily Coppenjan. Ryan LaRosa. Allison Lee. Lily Lorenz. Owen Lull. Jamie Marks. Amina Melian. Thomas Masiha. Dev Patel. Amelia Perlmutter. Patience Peterson. Steve Pishota. Samuel Rojas. Dante Rotundi. Anthony Tartabuono. Natalie Verone. and Elizabeth Zeidler.
One more round of applause for all our students and parents this evening. This concludes the ceremony. If anyone would like to stick around and take pictures, just text your son or daughter to come back into the auditorium. We are going to have to turn it over to Dr. Alati for 1 second.
All right. So you probably saw that I joined you as a parent. I'm a parent of Rutherford High School 11th grader, so it's a proud moment for all of us. So, as hard as the teachers and administrators work, who I think we owe a debt of gratitude to, it also has to do with what happens at home. So congratulations to all of you for all of your hard work with your children. Nights like this make all the other things worthwhile. So we are going to adjourn the meeting right now so that we can move it down to the Rutherford High School cafeteria, where we're going to resume the remaining of our regular meeting. We invite and welcome all of you to please join us down in the cafeteria for the regular Board of Education meeting if you'd like. But I need a motion from the board to adjourn so we can move downstairs. Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Mr. Conti. All in favor? Okay, we are adjourned, and thank you so much for coming. We took a recess to come over to the cafeteria, so we're going to resume our regular Board of Education meeting this evening, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Hurley for the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Tonight I'm going to dispense with my normal report because annually I'm required to report the student achievement report, which comes out 60 days, within 60 days of us receiving the results and the parents receiving the results of the state assessments. Included in the report are some things additionally to the state assessments, which we'll get to, like SAT scores and AP scores and the like. So I will make that my report tonight. But I do want to start just by a few comments about our students and our student body in general, in high school particularly. We just saw about 270 students receive awards honoring their scholastic achievement. And the standard for that is pretty high, as you heard, in terms of the GPA and the number of grades that need to be attained and maintained to get those awards. That's approximately 40% of our student population, which is a significant number. Sometimes people like to make comments or they like to make assumptions about young people. As we get older, and I get older, that's something that we often do. We base those comments, or people base those comments on what they think or what they hear or what they remember or what they see sometimes on Hollywood movies about kids. I think you just saw 275 outstanding young men and women, people. In the last month, in the high school, the students here have done a number of things on their own volition. 525 students attended a homecoming dance without a single incident, except everybody had a good time. The next day, many of you were at the game, the homecoming game. It's a frequent event at all of our athletic events, or many of them, to have what they refer to as a dog pound. And you saw how the kids show sportsmanship but have fun. You saw the band. You saw the cheerleaders. You saw the team. But in addition, homecoming weekend is also a fundraiser. The money that's paid to go to the dance and the like, the students raised $2,400 to give to this year's charity that the Student Council is endorsing, Center for Coping with Loss, which is a group that's dedicated to dealing with grieving families who have lost maybe a sibling, a child, a spouse. So that enthusiasm for the dance in the football game is also a civic activity. The cheerleaders initiated a fundraiser, getting mostly the faculty, but they initiated it to get the faculty on board. And they raised $1,740 to donate to Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital for lung cancer research. Okay? And the Interact Club, which is a service club, after the hurricane that devastated the west coast of Florida, asked the homerooms if they would do a spare change for one day, and raised just shy of $900 to donate to the Hurricane Relief Fund. I've always said, as a teacher and as a principal, and now as superintendent, that I have no concerns about the quality of our future because of the students I see day in and day out. And I just think, sometimes people like to make comments that are, I think, ill-informed. The reality is these kids, yeah, they excel in the classroom, they excel on the stage, in the band, on the athletic field, but they also have the heart and the drive to do things for others. And that's a quality I think that this generation has, even to a greater extent than perhaps the generations that we came from. So I applaud them for that. So, in talking about student achievement tonight, which is what this report's called, it's about academic achievement. It's really about testing achievement. I wanted to make the point about other achievements that they have. In your packet, you received the report on that I'm going to allude to tonight. I'm not going through the whole thing. I'm going to try to summarize some points. A great part of it is on the, and this will be posted for anybody who's watching either in the audience or later on video. This will get posted on the website following the report, the full report. I want you to know that if you remember past years, the report looks similar but slightly different. And that's because the State Department that requires that we give this report within 60 days and provides a template that we could use has yet to post the template, even though the clock is ticking on the 60 days. So we took an old template and we kind of created our own for this year. So it's the same, but it's slightly different, if you notice. The New Jersey student learning assessments are given from grades 3 to 9. Subject based, it could be a few kids in grade 10 who take it yearly. And pages 3 to 11 of the report break down the scores. And where there are multiple schools like Lincoln and Washington, their scores are given individually. And then there's also a district score. And Algebra 1, which is taught both at 8th grade and 9th grade, is listed for both schools, but then there's a district score. But the other scores are district-wide. And I just want to draw your attention to pages 9 through 11, where we have listings. It's just easier than going through all the other pages. The district scores. Level 1 is the lowest level. That's did not meet the expectation of the student for that grade level. Level 2 is partially met. Level 3 is approaching. And level 4 is meeting. And level 5 is excelling. So ideally, you want to have more kids in 4 and 5 than anywhere else. 3 is kind of, not so bad, not so good, but that's, okay. And 1 and 2 is where you raise some concerns. So when you look at the charts, you'll see that we have, in language arts, for example, about 4% of the students, anywhere between 3, there's one that has 9% that are in that level 1. You'll notice that the majority of our kids in language arts, somewhere between 64%, 63%, and 75% fall in levels 4 and 5. And the state averages in those areas are in the low 40s to 50s, because they're listed there for you too, at a different grade level. So we're significantly higher than the state averages. And anywhere from, somewhere in the ballpark of 2/3 of our kids on most grade levels or more are doing the meeting or exceeding the expectation. In the old days, pre this test, there was different cutoffs on the HSPA, the HSPT, then PARC. Those cutoffs were a little different, and the quote, the mythical passing is really not passing, would have included the level 3 kids. So our numbers still are in that 80s and 90s% of those students. In math, the scores on the next page, which is that 10, the math scores are a little lower, but they're a little lower across the board. There was an article in today's New York Times about math scores being lower across the country. But we're still doing fairly well, especially you'll see in the elementary level, where under 2% of our kids, grades 3 and 4, are in the level 1 area. We're in primarily high 50s, low 60s. There's 2 grade levels I'm going to allude to in a minute, one in particular, that are lower than that in terms of the 4 and 5 category. And the state averages in the high 30s and 40s. So again, we're significantly above the state, and the higher percentage of our students are getting the 4s and 5s, and obviously the 3, 4, and 5. Science is a different animal altogether. Statewide, the averages are low, and our averages are low. We're higher than the state, but the scores are low, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Okay? One of the things that have come up, in terms of, well, let me backtrack for 1 second. The report that we give and put forward here is really a small bit of all the data we get on these tests. We get tons and tons and tons of information that we dive into and we use to both look at curriculum and look at lessons and look at individual student growth. But in language arts, so some of this data that isn't shared because it would be just too much noise of information. But I'll share with you some of the highlights. In grade 3, our students scored higher than the state in all 22 standards, because every score is broken down by all the standards. Every question is broken down by all the standards. So we scored higher in all 22. Grade 4, we scored higher than the state in all 29. Grade 5, higher than the state in all 29. Grade 6, higher than the state in 31 out of 33 standards. There were 2 that we came below, just a little bit below. Grade 7, we scored higher in all 27. Grade 8, we scored higher in 32 of the 33. And in grade 9, we scored higher in 23 of the 26. So again, what we do, what the administrators and supervisors and teachers do, and I'm going to get to this a little bit more, is they look at all the standards, they look at all the grades, but those handful, and literally a handful, of areas where we scored below, they do a deeper dive there. To put things in perspective, there's concern about, you hear a lot about learning loss. In the last time this test was given, in 2019, in grade 3, the curriculum has changed a little bit, the standards. There were 21 standards. In grade 3, our students only scored above average in 14 of the 21. This year, if you recall what I said, they scored higher than average in all 22. In grade 5, for example, in 2019, they scored higher in 21 of the 25. This year, they scored higher in 29 of the 29. That's not evidence of a lack of learning loss because they're different kids, right? The kids in grade 3 or 4 years ago in the 2019 are not the kids now. But in terms of overall achievement, pretty much across the board in language arts, we scored either better than the last test or pretty much a wash, right around the same. Okay? Over in math, even though the scores are a little lower in terms of percentages, in grade 3, we were 35 out of 39 above the state. Grade 4, we were 38 out of 40 standards above the state. Grade 5, we were 36 for 36 above. Grade 6, we were 35 out of 38. Grade 7, we were 27 for 27. Algebra 1, grade 8, a bit of a problem, 35% above. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And again, using the same kind of unfair comparison and contrast, so I say unfair, unstatistically accurate comparison and contrast, we did better or the same just about every level compared to 2019. For example, back in grade 3, where we scored higher this time in 35 out of 39 standards, about the same last time. Well, actually, no, last time it was 46 standards, and we only were higher in 27. So we actually achieved better. We also took a quick look at some tests from 2019 to look at the learning loss potential. The grade 3 students in language arts in 2019, we had 13% in level 1. Pretty high number. Those students who took the test this past year in grade 6, only 4.9% were level 1. So when we talk about student growth, now across the board, every test, every level, the majority were either the same or better. There were a few that decreased, but only slightly. So again, when we talk about learning loss, the assessments that we're seeing, and our own internal ones with Linkit, IXL, and the like, don't really show it as a major problem here. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we were open for a good part of the shutdown, and our elementary kids were in school full time. So those third graders who scored poorly in 2019, they weren't home remote for 2 years. And the improvement is seen there. So that's a little bit of good news or some good news that this shows. There are a couple areas of concern that we have. And the first one is one that I've had for a number of years and I share internally for a number of years. And that's if we never really do anything differently, we're in good shape. I could sit here every year and say that we're above the state average, that we're above the state average in almost every category. In some areas, we are significantly above the state average. But the former coach and I, knows that, once you start thinking you're good, you're not going to be good very long. And complacency is something that we could easily fall into. So this year we've made a recommitment, as we talked about on opening day, and as we talked about in our goals, some of the goals that come forward academically, is to get kind of back. I mean, I'm using not a totally accurate phrase, but one that resonates with people, back to basics, back to really making sure that we're moving forward with academic standards and that we're providing the appropriate rigor to students. So overall, I don't want people to rest on their laurels. We're meeting with our staff about, we're doing a good job. These tests are great. You're going to see even a greater example of that when we get to the AP test. But let's keep digging. Let's keep driving to do better. Second area, one that is concerning to me, and is the Algebra 1 scores. Because our math scores are pretty good, both internally, looking at internal measures, and looking at comparison and contrast with the state, until we get to Algebra 1. And in Algebra 1, although they're not horrific, they're still above or pretty close to the state standards, there's a considerable drop. Now, students take Algebra 1 in grade 8. And then the students who don't do that well, and it's not just an ABC kind of ranking, it's more of a number of tests, Linkit that we use, other assessments, the state assessments, teacher recommendation. Some of those students then repeat Algebra 1, not because they failed necessarily, but because the skills may not be there to go forward, and they take it again in grade 9. So when you look at the grade 9 scores, that again, they're not terrible, but they're nowhere near as good as the scores in other grades. Those students have taken Algebra 1 twice. And I'm being very honest, frank, that's a concern of ours. So we're doing a real review of both pre-algebra, Algebra 1, and it's, again, I'm going to speak to it a little more in a few minutes. It's not just looking at a test score. It's looking holistically at the structure of the program. Because, again, I don't want to sit back here and say we're doing, I could come in and tell you it's okay. Look at the scores. Statewide, they're low. Our scores are higher than the state. We're okay. We want to be able to do better. And we want to see what the dynamic is about why, when we get to that point, there's a drop-off with students who are doing fine prior to that point. Okay? Now, I wish I had answers for you about what we found, but we're just starting this process. And I'm going to get a little more into that in a few minutes. Science is another area of concern. The science scores have always been lower. There's a couple of things that we're going to change the mindset on. And again, our scores are at or above the state. The state is, you look at the state scores, they're very low too. But there's a couple of things with science tests. They're given later in the school year. They are not connected to the graduation test in high school. There's often the mindset of students, and quite frankly, maybe even sometimes staff, of this is like, doesn't count as much. Yet every year we have to report it, right? Every year we talk about it. So again, we're looking at a deep dive into our science. Science standards have changed. There is now more integrated science, which means, especially in middle school, there's not the earth science in isolation, and maybe something akin to physical science in isolation, but more of an inquiry based, right, where things are integrated. So we're going to revisit, how are we presenting that? Do we need professional development there? Is there anything that we need to be doing differently? And again, because I don't want to just say because we're doing better than the state of New Jersey, that's good enough. We want to even do better. And the message is not that the sky is falling or there's a crack in the armor or any other cliche you want. The message is we should strive to do better. So in terms of algebra, in terms of all the test scores, in terms of science, what we're looking at is building on strength. And I've asked the supervisors to do an action plan, preliminary action plan, which they gave to me just the other day, of steps they want to take both in the classroom, outside the classroom with teaching and staff. Could be scheduling, it could be curriculum revision. I told them there's nothing that they can't explore. And then we're going to take that preliminary plan and meet with the administration and the supervisors are meeting and have met with their teachers already on some of this. Part of the workshop day was spent on this and looking into data and looking into an analysis of curriculum. And we're going to come up with an action plan with, a true plan with who's responsible for it, when do we expect to see some changes implemented. So, I'm very pleased with the results of the test, especially coming off of the 2.5 years of COVID. In fact, I could sit here and just say I'm ecstatic about it because it is a lot to be ecstatic about with the numbers. But we want to do better. Okay? We want to look at what we've done and figure out how we can do better. And if there is a hiccup here and there in the data, we're going to figure out how to really address that hiccup. And what you have in in the packet, before I get to that, there's a page or two on pages 12 and 13 that the state asks us to report every year the number of students who take the test. That's a meaningless page or two. We have to give it because it depends. That changes every year because of enrollment differences. But in terms, if you remember when Park came in, we had a lot of people opting out. This year, I believe district-wide, we had 3. Last year, we had 3 students, perhaps, or 4, who opted out in the district. So, this is a truer representation of all of our district. Then there's some charts that show you the different subgroups. You might see some, we have, white, Asian, Hispanic, male, female, different, and you see where they fall. And again, we use that data. The reason why you don't see some students with disabilities is there. The reason why you don't see some other subgroups, because you have to have at least 10 or more students for the state to give a report per grade level, for a state to give a report in the subgroup. So if there aren't 10 Asian Pacific students, Pacific Islander students in a grade level, or black students in a grade level, they don't show up as a subgroup. And the reason for that is because if I do a public report on 2 students or 3 students, in essence, you're identifying those students. If I say 180 students, 58% of the kids passed or had a high score, okay, but if I say 3 students in a group and none of them had a high score, or all of them had a high score, I've just identified those individual scores. Then there's about 20 pages of interventions. These are some of the interventions that I spoke of that the supervisors work by going through with the teachers specific questions to specific standards, and then they develop quick interventions that could be done in the classroom to help students achieve or do better in a certain area. And a lot of it would be things with maybe IXL or maybe other computer programs or different methodologies and the like. These interventions are not the ones I'm talking about in this deep dive, though. These are quick fixes that we could do, a teacher could pick up and do. I'm looking at a bigger picture with this action plan I'm asking for. Okay? And when you get through all the interventions, get near the back of the report, page 47, I have to also report an Access for L's. That's the test that English language learners, also known as ESL students, have to take every year. There's 5 different levels for that test. 1 is entering. That means students are very minimal use of language, as though they've just entered into English language. 2 is emerging. They have some social English, some academic English. Level 3, developing, means they can use social English fairly well. They have a better grip on academic English. 4, expanding, makes sense. They can now go into more technical language, more comfortable with social language. 5 is bridging, which really means they know how to use it and they can really work kind of independently with a little help. And 6 is reaching, which means they're really ready now to go mainstream. 55 students were in the program in 2021, 2022. 31% of those students exited the program. But keep in mind, that number is some of the students are in the program. They came in, they moved into the borough in March of that year. Some were in the program for 2 years. So it's not really of the 31 that exited out, we don't identify, how many were here for 3 months, how many may have been in for 2 or 3 years. Okay? And there's a chart that shows the percentage of students at grade level who landed in those 5 or 6 categories I talked about. And you can see the reaching and the bridging have fewer percentages of students. You also see, I always find it interesting how the younger students seem to move across the grid a little quicker. Okay, in terms of absorption of language, because they're learning language or learning reading at that age, and now they're being immersed into English, and they learn it a little quicker. So when you look at kindergarten age, 43% are already bridging the next highest level. Another test I need to report on is Dynamic Learning Maps, DLM. That is the assessment, the annual assessment, and that's on page 49. That's given to the most significantly cognitive disabled students who really don't get exposed to the traditional curriculum. We only had 2 students in district who took the DLM, and even in our out-of-district placements, we only had 5 who took the DLM. So because of the number of students, I can't report how they did, but I do have to still mention it in my report. We also mention every year the graduation rate, which you find on page 50. And as I remind you every year, the graduation rate cohort of 92.3 is not what the graduation report used to be up until about 10 years ago. Up until about 10 years ago, we would report, the whole state would report, whoever started the year as a senior and how many of those students graduated. And if I did that last year, we'd be at 100%. But this is the cohort, students who enter the class 4 years ago together. So if we have students who go to Bulldog Academy, which is what their program calls for, which is what's best for them, or go to an out-of-district 18 to 21 program, they count as a non-graduate in the cohort because they came in, they didn't graduate in 4 years. If we have a student who doesn't make it academically or because of the attendance policy in their sophomore year, maybe just needed some time to mature. They make up some classes in summer school, but they don't have enough to go forward. They have to repeat some classes. And now they're on the right track. They didn't graduate in 4 years. It took them 5 years. They don't count. So when you have 180 students, a couple of kids in the Bulldog Academy, a couple of kids who maybe didn't make it in sophomore year, does bring your number down to about 92 or 93%, because it's not a small number of kids. But that's the difference. It's the cohort. Now, there's merit in looking at that, right? Because ideally, you want students to come in and pass every year and move along and graduate. But keep in mind that for some students, especially those students in the 18 to 21 program, special ed population, the 5th year is an important one. And the 6th year, for that matter. And the 7th year. We also have to list our post-high school plans. So 70% of our graduates last year went to a 4-year college, 21 to a 2-year college, for 91% of the graduates attending college, and then 2 went to a non-college technical type school, 2%. So that's 93% for further education. 4% said they were going to go strictly to employment, 2% military, and 1% something that is new to the younger generation, the gap year, which is a way for your parents to spend money on you besides college. No, I'm only kidding. But it gives the student a chance to kind of get out and find their way. And the last thing I'll report on is the the last 2 things, advanced placement SAT. As you know, our advanced placement has just been tremendous the last several years. And we continue that trend. In the 2021-2022 school year, we had a higher number of students getting 3 or better. That's the magic number there. Nearly 80%, 79.52%. The total number of students taking the test was, 273 exams were taken by 166 students. So, nearly 80% of those students earned the grade that would give them potential college credit. And there's a chart, I apologize for the smallness of it, on the next page that shows over the last 5 years that this is not a fluke for us in our AP program, where we've had 133 students, 158 students, 152, 129, 132 students in 73% or higher every year earning that credit. And we've been honored by the College Board 3 consecutive years as a school of distinction because of those numbers. So once again, you talk about student achievement. That's a big part of student achievement. And it's not an elite club anymore. We made the decision years ago. You don't have to hit some prerequisite. You want to take an AP course, you want the challenge, you could do it. 166 students are taking AP classes in a school of just under 800 kids. So it's not just, the cream of the crop, the top 1%. This is a credit to a lot of our students. You will notice in the SAT results that fewer students have taken the SAT than the past, 131 students. It used to be every student took it. Juniors and seniors took it. 78% of the class of 2022 took the test. It used to be 92%, 95%. But not fewer, but many schools now are not making it a requirement or are not relying so heavily on it. Our average is 1083. I used to be able to talk to you about where we fell, statewide and nationally. College Board no longer gives you that data. Okay, so in many ways, the test is still important. It's still required in a lot of schools. It's still a help in a lot of schools, but it's starting to lose some of its significance. And the ACT, which was an alternate to the SAT, for a number of years, we'd have 30, 40 students taking it. Fewer than 10 students took the ACT. And I can give you the score on that because it's not a state test. Our average was 23.7. Most years we're around that average. And again, today in the Times was an article that the ACT has reported their lowest test scores in the last 10 years. And ours was pretty consistent with what we did in the past. So, I kind of feel like the president in January, February, the State of the Union. I think the state of our student achievement is pretty good. The things that we have concerns about are things that many schools would not. And the fact that we're going to roll up our sleeves and address them and are actively doing that now, I think is a good thing. I'm very pleased with how we got through the pandemic with a report and numbers and scores that really are no different, except they're a little better in some areas than what they were pre-pandemic. So that's my report. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Sprayberry and then Mr. Jones.
Page 11. The numbers don't add up. Page 11. We look at the percentages. They're adding up like 120 to 130 percentages. So
Which column are you looking at?
grading. We're on page 11, 5, 8, and 11. If you look at level 1, you look at all the district numbers, they add up way over 100%.
Well, are you adding them down? It's grade 5 goes across.
Yeah, go across. Yeah, you go
Well,
across.
so-
Go across, look at district 1.
So 29,
3.
38.
They don't add up to it's over 100%. They go across the board.
I'll have to check because these came right off the state report, so I'll have to check.
Dad's
Yeah,
up to,
like we didn't do the math, the state did. So maybe the state maybe the state's in level 1. Okay.
I'm over here, I'm reading it, and I'm like,
Well, that's I'll take the 20% off the lower numbers, and we'll look at it. No, I'll have to check because these came right from the state. But you've heard me talk before about some of the state reports. So.
if you look at that numbers, I mean, those numbers look astronomically high for level 1. Like you're saying,
Well, they are, but I'm telling you that historically, science has been a problem not only with us but in the state. So it would not be shocking to me.
yeah, you take 11th grade, that's right there. There's 100% just on level 3 down, and so you're like 140%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll check, and if there's a mistake that we made, I'll certainly send you a copy and change it before we post it. But I have a feeling this came off the state.
But overall breakdown.
Okay, except for page 11.
Ms. Jones?
The students that are in the Bulldog Academy now get an extra year because of COVID. They can stay till age 20.
I'd have to check to see if that's extended for this year too. I think it is. Definitely last year.
Well, my understanding it is. But
I think you're right, but I don't know for.
what does that do to your stats as far as the number of students that graduate
Nothing, because they would not count
at all?
at all because they didn't graduate with their cohort.
Okay. Well, some do though. They have graduated and then
No, we changed board policy that because we felt board policy was if you don't graduate, you can't walk in graduation. We amended that 3 years ago with the Bulldog Academy to, and I forget the language, but the language was that if you're in a program such as that, you have the option of walking with your class and get a certificate of attendance or an option of graduating when you actually graduate. So the students who move on to Bulldog Academy get the opportunity to be with their classmates,
it's not really.
but they are not officially graduates. And we were very careful in how we worded that policy so that it didn't open the door for somebody who just decided to fail every class and wanted to walk. You can't do that. Okay?
Got it. Thank you for that explanation.
Okay. And I think it's fair to the kids, because the kids, many of the students, all of the students who continue the Bulldog Academy from our district are going through our schools. And they're with the students every day, so it gives them a graduation night, which I think they deserve, ceremony, which they deserve.
So, Mr. Elliott, I just want to say thank you for your thoroughness. I think of a lot of things that we do as a board. I think tracking student progress is probably one of the most important things, and just knowing where students stand. And also appreciate the idea of not resting on our laurels, because I think, we can have data and results, but the question is, what are we going to do with that data and results? So I think having, not just the interventions, but also the deep dive in math, for example, I think speaks volumes to the commitment. So I look forward to hearing about
Thank you.
follow up in the coming months.
Right, and a lot of these are tied with our school goals. So certainly around the midpoint, I'll be updating you on the goals, and towards the end. But also if things of significance come along, I'll keep you posted on it. But yeah, I think to your point, Dr. Alati, we are inundated with data. I guess so much it can become just a bunch of noise that I want. Let's figure out what's important and let's figure out how we're doing this stuff. And it's impressive to come up with a list of 10 interventions or 20 interventions. But I use this with the teachers and the supervisors. If you go to the doctor and they give you a prescription and you take it for a while and it doesn't make you better, you go back and you say to the doctor, can we try a different prescription? So, interventions, we need to assess the interventions as well. And if they're not working, we have to then tweak them. So, I'll keep you posted. All right, anything else?
Any other questions or comments from board members? Ms. Ahmed?
To most of you, probably this will be a little trivial, but after seeing all these presentations, over the years, I always feel sorry for the people that have Z's because they come last. Can't we ever reverse it and do the Z's first and then get the A's at the end?
Yeah, I don't know.
I just felt so bad for that girl with disease.
Yeah, but that kid got the whole applause for 100 kids. She was the only one that heard them all.
I think you should do it.
That's why I chose
my
my
son
name.
will benefit from it, so yes.
My name was actually Zora. I changed it to be H in the middle. Yeah, no.
But if you had to audition, if your son's had to audition, it's rough for them to be an A. Because, they don't know it's the first thing. You would have an advantage if disease went first.
I don't know.
Well,
Switch it up.
The first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
noted. All right, so we are going to move on now to the report of the president. I'll be brief. First of all, thank you, Mr. Hurley, Mr. Morano, for organizing a tightly run but great ceremony this evening. Really fantastic to celebrate our students. I know anything that involves students is always a highlight for me, so thank you for that. On the agenda tonight are board goals that we're going to be approving. They're ones that were discussed, a reflection of all your feedback that Mr. Conti had collected as chair of strategic planning. The most updated ones were not listed in the agenda, so Mr. Hurley reprinted them, so they're here. So, Ms. Jones, when you do your report, you'll know they're there. I just wanted to say the homecoming parade and game was a ton of fun. I sat next to the dog pound, and I just want to confirm it is very scary, the dog pound, and very loud. But no, it was really a great time. So events that are coming up tomorrow evening, October 18th, is Meet the Board of Education Candidates Night. It's in the Rutherford High School Auditorium from 7 to 9 p.m. On October 24th to the 26th, thank you to Mrs. Jones and Mr. Healy, who are going to join Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Gamboa at the NJSBA workshop in Atlantic City. Look forward to hearing about how that goes and anything you bring back. Our next Board of Education meeting is on November 14th. And then Rutherford High School is having its all-school play, The Puffs, which I believe is Harry Potter
Kind of Harry Potter
spinoff.
spin-off.
So November 17th, 18th, and 19th, if any of us are available to be able to see the show. And then finally, on Friday, November 18th, the Rutherford Education Foundation is having their casino night, their annual casino night at the Grey Cliff. You all know how supportive the RAF has been in supporting grants that aren't funded by the district budget. So if you're able to go, it's a great event. There are no new webinars that are listed in terms of professional development on the NJSBA website, but if they become available, I will let people know. That is it for my report. Questions or comments? All right, hearing none, then at 8:45 p.m., we're going to open up the meeting to the public. Yeah, so if you have questions related to the agenda this evening? Okay, so it's 8:45 p.m. We're going to open the meeting to the public. So what we'll ask you to do is if you want to, you need to come up to the microphone up here. Just say your full name and your address so we have that. And then you can have the opportunity to share anything you'd like. It's not typically a back and forth dialogue, but if it's an easy question that Mr. Hurley can answer, we'll try. If not, we can get back to you by email.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I didn't know the formalities.
That's
my
okay.
first meeting.
No, absolutely.
Okay, thank
Please,
you.
we're happy you're here.
All
The
right,
more the
thank
merrier.
you, thank you. I was there and I was like, you know what, I should go attend this. So one thing is I wanted to...
Could you just give us your name and address?
Yeah. I'm Ramya Rajendran. My address is 142 Mountain Way, Rutherford. I heard you guys mention about the science and the focus on science. I just wanted to say I welcome that because when we moved here, my son was in 4th grade and now he's in 10th grade, and I see really good focus on the ELA portion. But with science, it's like on and off. And to your point, it was not integrated. But I come from a school where we did maths, physics, chemistry together. Like every year had a little bit of each. So the integration was much easier than doing physics 1 year, chemistry 1 year, biology 1 year. So more focus on the STEM aspect is something I welcome. I wanted to say I'm so glad you guys are focusing on that. I myself am an engineer. I'm from a STEM background, so I absolutely support that. And the second thing I want to bring up is I know that the SAT model is changing in a couple of years. So from a proactive like thinking perspective, maybe the teacher should be more aware, like, we need to move the needle along with, or ahead of whatever the actual industry is moving. And, just wanted to bring it up that could be another focus for us to think about. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thanks for all the help. I loved hearing all the data points. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Can I just comment on? Well, Sergio, can I just comment on one thing?
So at 8:48 p.m., we're going to close the meeting to the public. Mr. Early, do you want to make
Yeah,
a
just
comment?
on your point about the SATs and about writing and different approaches. Yeah, we're aware of that. We are working on that, and there's a lot of discussion going on right now about. I was an English teacher, and I was language arts supervisor for years, and things have changed, and we used to teach. It used to be more like a book club. But the book is just the tool that you're using for critical thinking, creative thinking, and writing. So that's changed, and it's changing even more as we go forward. So to your point, we're working on it, and I think it already has changed a great deal in many classes. So we're moving in that direction.
All right, so we are going to move on now to new business where there is action to be taken. We are going to start out with personnel. I'll ask Ms. Ahmed to please take us through that.
Thank you, Mr. President. We don't have many, we only have 12 resolutions today. So, number 1, Marissa Amord to accept her resignation as a bus assistant in Rutherford. 2, William Gamboa to rescind Mr. Gamboa as a long-term substitute. But number 3 is to approve him as a leave replacement ELA teacher at Union School. Number 4, Constance DeFazio to approve her as a long-term substitute teacher at Pierpont School. Tahira Sharif Zada to rescind as a lunch monitor at Union Middle School, but to approve her, I believe, Sharif, so is it a male or female, I'm not sure, as a head lunch monitor at Union Middle School. 7, Bulldog Care Counselor, before and after, as a Bulldog counselor at the hourly rate of $19,029.5. I don't know why I had responsibility there for some reason. 8, Employee 2213, sick day to approve a disability leave. It's a sick day maternity 10-year act altogether. 9, Employee 1972, sick days to approve for consecutive family illness days with pay. Number 10, Employee 2210, to approve disability leave with pay for that employee. It's a maternity leave with child-rearing absence without pay through June 30th. Employee 1084, approve the extension of a disability leave and for maternity. These are so confusing. They get bigger and bigger all the time. Following the birth of a baby, absence under New Jersey Leave Act, U.S. Family and Medical Leave Act, concurrently without pay, follow the cheer absence with pay through June 30th. I read that 5 times. I still don't understand what they're entitled to. 12, travel reimbursements. Travel reimbursements for the school year for Kim Buchanan, Lauren Fuchs, and Helen Podolenchuk. I believe that was it.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, Mrs. Ahmed, do you want to move those?
Okay, thank you. With recommendations to superintendent, we would like to move resolutions 1 through 12.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Bogosian, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will move on now to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones.
Thank you. We did not have a curriculum and instruction meeting, and tonight there are 5 resolutions which have been put forward at the recommendation of the superintendent. 1, board goals, and I'll read those. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1, develop and implement a board community outreach communications plan. 2, the board will work with the superintendent to develop a plan to ensure the smooth transition of leadership in the district. 3, enable board members to enhance board cohesiveness by attending or participating in school activities, training workshops, and community events. Resolution number 2, motion number 2. This is to the attached list for contracts for tuition and other services. 3 is for field trips, and there's 35 of them now. 4 is emergency bus evacuation drills. This is for the school year 22-23. And 6 is to approve the home instruction for 2 students. And that is it for curriculum and instruction.
All right. Questions or comments from board members? Mr. Bogosian?
So for the board goals, once approved, do they go into strategic planning committee for actual implementation, or do they sit in the C&I committee for implementation? I'm a little confused as to why they're there.
Yeah, so we talked about it at our strategic planning committee meeting and talked about going over the board goals and sort of how they're going over the course of the year, and then also making sure that we have an opportunity to talk about them maybe periodically at our board meetings, but sort of doing a little bit more of that in terms of the check-ins around the goals over the course of the year.
I guess my question is more like who takes ownership of ensuring that the community outreach communications plan exists? Is that Jack? Is it you?
So it is a goal that we meet as a board of the whole.
Oh, so we will talk about this as in a future meeting collectively.
Correct. So, you know, with that, so that would be an example of something that probably, because it's our strategic planning and communication committee, it may start there, for example, with having a conversation about that and the mechanics of doing that, and then reporting out. And so when we have a strategic planning committee meeting, like any committee meeting, the chair will report out during a board meeting and discuss the progress toward those goals.
So similarly for 2, and also, so I guess my question was that strategic planning will take ownership of this and then come back to us later.
Yeah, I would say that's a good assessment. Mr. Conti, as the chair, would you agree?
Agreed.
All right.
Can I add one thing?
Yep.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think that the goal number 3, Dr. Alati, I put into the communication most months
Yeah, that's already started.
activities, right? And Dr. Alati has been highlighting those. So I think that's kind of a whole board. And number 2 is directly tied with a goal that I have for myself, which I'll be reporting back to you on as well. So I think, it's kind of a holistic, right, approach with certain individuals or committees taking the lead.
Okay.
But I think they've already begun. I think the showing at the homecoming game, for example, was a step in that direction. And for anybody who's in the audience or watching this, well, if you're watching it later, you'll know. Dr. Alati mentioned there was a mistake made in the agenda, and the space holder goals were re-included, and so the goals that Mrs. Jones read are the accurate goals. I apologize for that. That and page 11. I got if it's 2 strikes, they bring the closer in, I'm in trouble.
All right, Ms. Jones, do you want to move those?
I will move motions 1 through 5 under curriculum and instruction.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Mazzone, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Owati?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to finance now. Dr. Racine?
For finance, we have 4 motions. Number 4 is not labeled as 4, but 2 can step in.
Oh, you're right.
Okay. First one is approval of bills. Number 2 is the the office report and the 3-year budget transfers. Number 4 is entered into our, this is yearly, I believe, or every 3 years, our energy co-op agreement, right?
Yeah, we for years we did belong to this, and we dropped out because we got a better rate by going out to auction for our energy services. But they also, part of this ACES, they also do some technology contracts, some technology goods that we can, purchase through a cooperative purchasing agreement through them. So I wanted to rejoin for that reason.
The fact that they buy and collect, but not for energy.
Not for the energy, no.
And that's it.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members? Hearing none. Dr. Racine, you want to move those?
I'd like to move items 1 through 4 in finance.
All right. We have a second. Mr. Bogosian, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right. Next is policy. Mr. Healy's not here this evening, but there is, I believe, nothing to report and nothing to move. So I think we can skip policy this evening as there are no motions, and we will move on to buildings and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Good evening. We have 2 motions to put forth at the recommendation of superintendent. The first one is the 3-year annual maintenance contract as required by the state. And if you haven't read through it, it's a great nighttime reading. So it's a great plan. It's well put together. A lot of square feet in our district, 450,000 square feet. So yes, I went through it. I was reading it. It's exciting.
A lot of details there.
A lot of details.
Yeah.
But and I do like the part of the $143 per square feet. It's
Yes,
great.
we strive to live by that one.
Number 2 is we got 3 change orders, 2 at Union Middle School, bleachers and plumbing, and the Rutherford High School for the rooftop site stones. So those are the 3 motions. Mr. Kelly, anything to add?
If you want me, I'll just go into a little more detail on this comprehensive maintenance plan. This is a required report every year that sits in somebody's file cabinet when we're done here. What it's doing is basically looking at the square footage of each of our buildings, which has increased over the last year. So we're up at about 451,000. We were less than 400,000 2 years ago. So we've added about 55,000 square feet. And then at a building cost of $143 per square foot, they make a determination as to how much we should be spending on our required maintenance every year. The $143, as you know, is obsolete, has been obsolete for decades. So the calculation comes to a conclusion that they want us in next year's budget to make sure that we budget at least $129,000 in required maintenance. Required maintenance being things we do to upkeep the systems in the buildings, and we anticipate budgeting over $1 million. The 129 just isn't going to cut it, but we just got to do what we have to do, which includes filing this report. So that's really what this is.
Can you describe the first project, change order, bleacher, premium time, millwork, tops, escalation? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, we did authorize additional time for the contractors to finish with the bleachers. It was weekend time. So that's the bleacher time and millwork. Tops, millwork are the cabinets and the shelving units. So
Got
they
it.
needed some time to.
Okay.
Some
So it's a little
some cost
simpler than I
escalation.
thought the explanation
Yeah,
was. Got it.
that's pretty simple. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Mrs. Sprayberry, you want to move those?
One other thing I'd like to add before we do. So I attended 2 PTA meetings within the past few weeks, and so buildings where there's a lot of parents there, great attendance. And one of the stuff that I talked about was the buildings and grounds and the addition of the buildings, the excitement coming out of it. And we heard the exact same thing coming out of a lot of the parents and stuff. They are very thankful, for all the buildings and the spaces and everything. So just all positive.
while we're on that topic, I mentioned that I guess we have to stop calling it the multi-purpose room at Pierpont, because now it's really more of a lunchroom, right? But it was open this past week for student use, and they're in their second week now of being there. And I went over the first day. It's just quite a difference, and it's more spacious, brighter, cleaner. The pantry area is enlarged, where there's a lot more room for the lunches, and it just really seemed to be worth the extra wait that we had to get it done. It's really a nice finishing touch. And we're in punch list time in the here and in Pierpont, and those are always, I tell the administrators, and Mr. Kelly and I talk about this. These actually sometimes are more frustrating times, because the little things that have to get finished that seem to take forever, the little things, right? But it's a good place to be in. I mean, the buildings are operational, and Union, that the substantial completion date, the movable target keeps moving a little bit, saying by the end of the week. We'll see how that goes. Okay, but we are making significant progress. Also, our video is in the process, as Mr. Met is doing a good job of working on that, putting a lot of time in. We are looking at a way to get the whole board to walk through, and Joe and I spoke about that last week, and we'll probably have a couple of ideas that will be floating out to you the next week or so about how to get that done.
Great. Mr. Mazzone?
Yeah, building on what James had said, I attended the high school PTA meeting, and I have to say it was impressive. 30 parents or more probably were there, 25, 30, all excited about building, commenting about what their students were saying about the building. Loved everything about it, loved the energy. I think in large part to the upgrades, the renovations, the screens, everything made its way in that conversation, and no negative responses at all.
Yeah, it's been very positive.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Ahmed?
In response to Mr. Bogation's comment about things like that we could get involved in, is there still municipal alliance? No? Oh, that was good. That was the way that we got to know Jeff and
I have
all the
not heard
teachers.
anything about it in years. So I'm assuming it's still on.
Oh, 'cause that was a good thing. We, with the policemen, and Jeff was in there and everything.
I can double check, but I've not heard that term mentioned.
Because all of a sudden nobody was being appointed, but we had dances in here. We used to fill the gym, And you work with teachers, you work with a lot of people in town, and it was a way to get to know other board members. So it's the only thing.
Ms. Jones?
Just adding to the athletic events, the girls soccer has been playing. They had a tough week. They lost to Lyndhurst and North Arlington, but our little Poppy is quite an asset to the team. And the girls volleyball team is doing very well. They are just winning all their games, so it's fun going to see them. I enjoy trying to make one event of each one.
Yeah, this is great. You know what? We're going to approve buildings and grounds, and then we'll get to old business.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No problem.
We kind
No
of just
problem.
veered off into. He started it, and then it just all went down.
Way to go, James.
Ms. Jones, you didn't start it. Someone else started it. I'm just ending it. Mr. Spurberry, you want to move those? Excellent. We have a second. Mr. Conti, any last questions or comments? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly?
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Excellent. Now we are in old business. Well, I just wanted to echo something Mr. Mazzone said earlier. I was also at the high school PTA meeting this past week, and I have to say, listening to Mr. Morano speak, he, at that time of the evening, I don't know, he must, he has energy at all hours, but he is just so energized and motivated and excited about everything going on in the high school. It's really, really great to watch. But is there any old business other than what has been shared that people would like to share?
We get a
Ms.
list
Summit.
of what our different assignments are. It's been a while with the COVID and everything. I don't even know what committees I'm on anymore.
That gets distributed from my office every January,
Yeah.
and was distributed this past January. And when the board reorganizes in January, it'll get revisited and get distributed again.
I can tell you after.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if I have to cover
Okay.
a PTA meeting or not. I don't have it listed.
Yeah, it's the same. It's so that it changes during the reorg meeting in January. So yeah.
But you remember you and I were both at one time at the high school.
Yeah, I go as a parent, but we
No,
can
that's
talk
good
after the
that you
meeting.
do, but I mean, I didn't know if there was anything else.
Yep,
Okay.
I will share it with you after. Any other old business? Hearing none. Legislative update, Mr. Jones.
Just one quick one. This is Assembly Bill 4727. It's sponsored by Assemblywoman Mila M. Jassy from District 27, Essex and Morris. And it requires the Commissioner of Education to receive approval from the State Board of Education prior to imposing new standardized assessment requirements on public schools. Evidently, that wasn't the procedure before.
Oh, it's saying the commissioner has to get approval from.
From the State Board of Education prior.
Yeah, I think the commissioner had the authority to put the test through. I think that's correct.
So this would be a change if the State Board of Education has to approve?
Yeah, I believe so.
That might be something to look into. I'll watch it.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
One thing on legislation, I think it was mentioned at a meeting, one of the last meetings, about the governor's putting funding aside to get floor plans digitized, and so the state police would have access in the event of an emergency. Mr. Kelly and I are both registered for a webinar with the New Jersey Department of School Security on Thursday, is it? I think it's Thursday, where they're going to give us some of the details about that, how to get that done.
All right, thank you. At 9:09 p.m., we're going to open the meeting to the public for any items related or not related to the agenda this evening. Any other items? Hearing none, we're going to close the meeting at 9:10 p.m. There is a need for an executive session to discuss one student matter. Should be out for about 10 minutes. One contractual thing, one student matter, no action to be taken. You should be out
10 minutes.
about 10 minutes or so. Need a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Bogosian, seconded by Mr. Sprayberry. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Are we moving?